as of right now, it's Saturday, and we're about to roll into that Sunday slate. The waiver wire has been cooked as earlier this week waivers ran, and now we're looking to pick up guys off the waiver wire to see if we can find a stash on the cheap, a free square that we can hoard on the back end of our roster. The wide receiver position on the waiver wire is cooked in damn near every league. It's hard to find a good wide receiver on the waiver wire that you're excited about. A player that has upside, a player that you can get that's cheap, that's free, that you can hoard for a few weeks to see what happens with. But looking at the roster rates, Jameson Williams is still available in a lot of leagues. About half the leagues, he's still available. If he's been picked up in your league, then he got picked up. But there's about half the leagues out there that he's still out, sitting on waivers, waiting for a team to pick him up. And the thing about him is he could go off on any given Sunday, and we're going to be looking at the news, the facts, the data, and the advanced metrics to determine whether or not you need him for fantasy football. But what you really need to do is hit that subscribe button right now, tap it with the finger on your phone, click it with your mouse, whatever you got to do to get the job done, because we're doing these deep dives every single day on these waiver wire players, these guys who should be stashed as high-end lottery tickets. We're also helping you set those lineups. We're helping you win those trades and everything else. Hit that button. Stop missing out. But let's look into Jameson Williams again. We've talked about him a lot. We talked about him last year. Talking about a week or so ago. But waivers have ran. He's sitting on waivers now in a lot of leagues. Let's look at him. Amon-Ra St. Brown is doubtful, dealing with an abdomen injury. The thing is, he could be in, he could be out. I saw some things saying that he was out. I saw some things that he's trying to get back in, as we saw in one of these headlines here. So the thing about him is he got that dog in him. He could play through it. Let's see what happens with him. Let's be Bayesian. Let's see what goes on with him. That could be a factor for Sunday's game either way, whether he's in or out, because they may say, hey, let's get Jameson some run here. Let's have him run some 9 routes. Let's have him do some wind sprints here. Let's see what we can do with him. And maybe we can connect downfield with him. Maybe he just stretches the field, allow everybody else to work underneath. Maybe we can see that. But if he gets a couple deep targets, it could be deep ball city. And we talk about deep ball city a lot with these players. And looking at the roster rates, the top one, the green one there, is ESPN, 39.3% roster rate. Might be different on your app, because sometimes I check these roster rates on different devices and I get different numbers, but 39.3% roster rate, 40%. And then on NFL.com, he's got a 55.9% roster rate. And then on Sleeper, he has a 47%. So about half the leagues out there, maybe a little bit less, but he is available in a lot of leagues still, and he's still a top tier stash that people are looking at. And there's not many stashes available at the wide receiver position, as the waiver wire has been a hot mess the last couple weeks. We haven't been getting many top prospects coming off the waiver wire, especially for the wide receiver position recently. And now we got this void right now where a guy like Jameson Williams is a breath of fresh air if he's sitting there on the waiver wire, because it's the same running backs, it's the same wide receivers. We're kicking the can down the road. We had a good weeks 1, 2, and 3 on the waiver wire, but 4 going into 5, it has not been too great. And now we got to wait for these rosters to turn and burn for us to be able to look into some players. Jameson Williams is coming back. We might see him get some opportunities soon, but he's a lottery ticket. We're going to talk about that later in the video. But looking at his usage and his production last year, wasn't much. He was coming back from that ACL injury. He was in his rookie season. They gave him a slow ramp-up time. He did get some opportunity. He did get some deep targets thrown his way because he has elite speed. But still, it was a lost year last year. We were talking about him every week as a stash, as a guy stashed on IR. And if there's a player on IR that's a rookie who has something dynamic in their profile, stash him on IR, see what happens later on down the road. The worst thing that happens is you just wasting an IR spot that you're probably not going to use anyway, and you need to use that IR spot as a strategic spot on your team. Jameson Williams was like that last year. We waited to see if something happened. Kind of did on week 14, but it was a ramp-up period, and they did not really release him into the wild last year, getting him an opportunity. But one thing we can talk about is he does get a fair amount of deep targets per the amount of targets he got. 3 deep targets last year, 20 plus yards. Medium targets, 10 to 19 yards. He got 4 of those. He gets downfield. They want to push him downfield because he has that top tier 4.3 speed. That's something that the rest of the wide receivers on this team don't have. He's going to help the other wide receivers and the tight ends in the offense get open because you got to account for him. You have to account for him or you're going to get burned alive by Jameson Williams. Going back to his college stats here, he really hit the home run when he transferred to Alabama during his final season. 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. Remember back during that time, he was a highlight every Saturday waiting to happen. Yards after the catch, deep balls, you couldn't stop him. He's also a very nuanced route runner. He can break off routes better than expected, better than what people would tell you about. He's very good at stopping on a dime, selling routes. Not elite, not like the best in the league or anything, but he's better than expected. We saw that at Alabama. We might see that a little bit this year when he comes back, but it's deep ball city with this dude. His average depth of target's insane. 18 during his final year at Ohio State. 14.5 of average depth of target at Alabama when he was funneled with targets. 3.12 yards per route ran. 9.3 yards after the catch per reception. That's pretty remarkable considering he was also getting a lot of deep balls as well. Those deep balls, you catch them and you get brought down because you got to make that play on the ball while it's in the air. Somebody's on you. So that stifles the number a little bit. If you didn't get as many of that due to him being so fast, you might even had a bigger yards after the catch per reception, but still 722 yards after the catch per reception, very solid because that's indicative of his 4.3 speed. And in looking at the draft capital here, remember the Detroit Lions drafted him in the first round. They drafted him in the first round for a reason, and it's obvious. He's got elite speed. They want him to take the top off the defense. They want to push it downfield with him. They want to use him to allow Amon-Ra St. Brown to work even easier over the short to intermediate parts of the field. It allows Sam Laporta, who wasn't drafted then, to work during the short to intermediate part of the field then. But they want that elite speed. They want that home run hitter. They want to use him. They saw something out of him. They had to burn that draft pick. Even though they already had Amon-Ra St. Brown there as a young player, hitting, doing good things. They wanted that deep threat, that guy that can really hit the home run. We see here 4.39 40-yard dash, and we got speed to burn. Watch the tape from Alabama if you want to see how quick he is because he really lit it up. Just turn it on. Google it right now. Look at the highlights. He was also very productive at Alabama SEC level compared to Will Fuller. We talk about the Will Fuller effect. I named it after him because when we look at his numbers, it's very up and down due to him getting those deep balls and those splash plays, which is always good to see. And going back to Will Fuller's career, this is what I'm talking about. You get a whole lot of nothing, then that spike week. Whole lot of nothing, then that spike week. Whole lot of nothing, then that spike week. And I see that for Jameson Williams' career. That is my take on Jameson Williams. That was my take last year. That's my take now. That was my take coming in. And I see it like that with him, especially when he got drafted to the Lions, when he's working with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I see him getting splash games. Him having a game here where he goes off, a bunch of games in the middle where there's nothing, then another game where he goes off, another game where he does nothing, maybe a couple average games here and there sprinkled in. But we're going to see boom-bust scenarios, maybe like a Gabe Davis type of player, deep downfield targets. If you bring a couple of those in, you got yourself a huge fantasy performance. If the quarterback can't connect, he gets overshot on or whatever, then we're not hitting that week. That's what we're looking at here, and that's what we're seeing from this player. But you see the upside with Will Fuller, very comparable. Very comparable. And this is from his second year in the NFL to like 2020. Now we're looking at the Detroit Lions here, and we're looking at the target shares. Amon-Ra St. Brown's that dude with a 28% target share. Sam Laporta's pushing a 22% target share in this offense, which is very big for a tight end. That means he's eating a lot of targets, and those are targets that can't go to the wide receivers. That's going to affect Jameson Williams. Also, Jahmyr Gibbs is getting run in the passing game. Targets going to tight ends and running backs. That hurts that second wide receiver in the offense. Josh Reynolds is still going to have a role in this offense because he's been dependable. He's getting good air yards. He's getting opportunity. I could see him getting some shorter targets. I could see some of the deep ball attempts go to Jameson Williams' way. Also, Khalif Raymond, dust. Marvin Jones, dust. Jameson Williams might have a ramp-up time. That's the one thing we want to talk about. Jameson Williams might start off slow, even if Amon-Ra's out this week. Even so, Jameson Williams might start off slow because this team does not do the sexy thing. We can admit that, right? We can admit that. Jahmyr Gibbs, we're not doing the sexy thing here. We didn't do the sexy thing with Jameson Williams last year. They're very conservative with their approach, with injuries, with guys coming back. Maybe they want to test the water, see how he works, see how he runs. But this is a team that's running 6 to 7 plays a game, 37 pass attempts a game. And if the game script calls for it, they'll push it over 40 easy. They don't care. They can run it. They can pass it. They can go wherever the game script calls for it. Jared Goff, 14 deep ball attempts so far this season. I think that's going to increase once Jameson Williams is in the fold, which could be this week or down the line. Because remember, we're going to have a ramp-up time with him. We should. He also didn't have the greatest training camp this year. Had some injuries, got a little tussles. It wasn't the greatest training camp for Jameson Williams. It's been a slower year for him because of the suspension. The training camp might need a ramp-up time. So don't expect him to be productive out of the gate. Again, this is a lottery ticket. Looking at the Lions' schedule, we got some juicy matchups. We got some scary matchups. How the cookie crumbles. But all in all, decent schedule. Decent schedule going up. And the Lions are going to be in some good schedules because how the Lions play the game. Lottery ticket, I want to hammer that home because when I talk about these lottery tickets, people kind of don't understand what that means. You have that back-end roster spot instead of having a guy that's a roster clogger. Sure, he's getting you 8, 9, 10, 12 fantasy points per game. You can kind of count on him when you need him. However, he's not going to turn around on your team and help you win the league and all of a sudden start scoring 15, 16, 17, 18 fantasy points per game or deliver splash performances that you can gamble on when the matchups are right. Jameson Williams could be that guy for you. You got to pick your lottery ticket. You're going to only have so many, but you got to pick. That's why I do so many of these videos. So you know which lottery tickets you want. You look at the metrics and be like, I want that guy. I want that guy. I don't want that guy. I only need running backs. So I don't need wide receivers. This is an open book test, and you take the answers in the book and try to do the questions as best you can. So I'm giving you different videos every day, and you just pick your poison. That being said, you need them because you need that upside. You're chasing that upside. You're chasing that lottery ticket. You don't know what you're going to get. I don't know what we're going to get, but we know we're going to be getting deep balls. We know he's going to be running routes deep. We know we're going to get opportunities throughout the back end of the season. Season's still young. We still got a lot of games left. This could be a splash play guy for it. You don't need the lottery ticket. That's why you don't need him. You do not want the lottery ticket. You got some running backs on lottery ticket right now. You're also stacked because you hit on weeks 1, 2, and 3 on the waiver wire. You got that Puka Nacua, maybe a Kyron Williams, maybe another guy. Maybe you're good. You don't need the lottery ticket. You don't need to put a lottery ticket on a wide receiver. You only want to put them on running backs. That makes sense. That's what I do. I like to put my lottery tickets on running backs and really push the chips there. See if I can hit and really draft heavy at wide receiver. But again, I got to cover the wide receivers too. And when I see the roster rate be kind of low on a wide receiver like this, who's very boom bust, who got some opportunities, some good things in their profile, I got to announce it. I got to call it out. Help you guys out. Help you get those answers. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to hear about it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.